Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let's take a look at using pivot tables in Numbers with some practical examples. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. Pivot tables have been around in Numbers for almost a year now, but I'm still getting a lot of questions that tell me a lot of people aren't using them yet. Let me show you some practical examples of how you can use pivot tables with your spreadsheets. So here's something a lot of people use Numbers for, to simply catalog things that they own. For instance, you may have a catalog of all the books in your collection. So here's a sample list of about 1,000 books, and I put the title, the series, author, and other information. Now let's say we want to know some basic things about this collection. For instance, how many books are there per genre? You can see there's fiction, classics, science fiction, and so on. Now you could calculate the total number of fiction books by using functions like SUMIF. But then calculate that for all of the different genres, figuring out how many different ones there are, putting that in another table, that could take a lot of work. But it's easy to do if you have a pivot table. So to create a pivot table, just select any cell or any part of the table you want to start with. So in this case, my book collection table. Now I'm going to click this pivot table button here. That will create a pivot table in a separate sheet. So I have one sheet here called Database. If I click this, it's going to create another one called Book Collection Pivot. And it's an empty pivot table right now. It tells me to go to Pivot Options over here, and you can see it conveniently goes to Organize Pivot Options. And now I can create the pivot table from the columns in the original database. This is why it's super important to have a nicely formatted table that contains just one thing. In this case, records of all the books I have. I haven't added extra rows with different calculations and data that's not related to this. I have one header row and it has all of the headings, and then every other row is a record of a book that I have. There are no blank rows or anything like that. Once you have a table that's nicely built like this, you can do lots of things with it, including these pivot tables. So in this case, I want to answer the question, how many books do I have per genre? So the first thing I want to select here is genre. And it's automatically going to add that as a row here. And I'll see each genre listed here on the left. Now I want to count how many books I have in each genre. So what I want to do is go down here to where it says Values. And I want to add something to that. Now, since I'm just counting, I don't really need to add anything specific there. I can just add genre again. I'm going to drag it here to Values and drop it in. And I'm going to get a count. You can even see it says right here, genre count all. I could change that by clicking the I button here, and I could summarize by sum, average, maximum, minimum, and all that. The only thing that makes sense here in this pivot table is to actually count them. So I'm going to do count all, and it's going to tell me how many books I have that are classics, how many that are fantasy, how many that are fiction. I could easily sort by this column just like a regular table. I'll click here, I'll sort values, and I'll sort descending. So it's going to put the largest number at the top. So I can see fiction, classics, fantasy, young adult. These are all the top ones in this list. Now my next question is, how many books do I have per format? So instead of having genre here, I'm going to take that away, and then with that empty, I'm going to add format, and it'll add to rows, and I'll drag format here to values as well. And now I'll get a count, the same kind of thing, except now it's doing it by format. So you can see I've got 576 paperbacks, 269 hardcover. What if I wanted to do both? Well, I could take genre and format. If I check genre, it's going to put it as the columns here. So now I can cross-reference this. So I can see, for instance, hardcover classics 15. I don't have to view it this way. I could drag genre down here to rows. And now it's everything with format being the first column, genre being the second. If I wanted to reverse that, I simply swap these. I'll just drag this to the top. Now it's genre and format. You can see these little disclosure triangles here. So when I look at classics, for instance, I could see I've got everything revealed. Box set, ebooks, hardcover, and so on. In addition, at the bottom, I've got classics total and the total number there. I could click the disclosure triangle there and compact classics into one thing. I can actually option click and it will take everyone and shrink it and just give me the actual total number for format. Or so I see, for instance, all of the classics I've got. If I want to see classics by format, I can open it up. Really handy. I can get a lot of information about my collection just by using this pivot table. Now let's remove these and let's look at authors. I'll add author here to rows and I'm going to drag author as well down to value. And now I can see which authors I have the most books. I can sort descending and I can see my top authors. Now I have date and the date published column here isn't complete. Some are blank. But I could actually count the dates. If I do that here, let's put date as a row. You can see it automatically shows me years. If I click here, you can see there's a group by. And group by will allow me to do things like year or month. So I could, for instance, see how many books I have that were published in October. Let's go and drag date down here also to values. And you can see that 363 books were published in October, which is an odd thing to want to know. More likely you're going to want to know, say, by year. And now I could see each year and I could sort them. And you can see that there are 32 books that I have that were published in 2005. Now can you combine pivot tables with graphs? Yes, you can. Let's go and resort this again. I'm going to click on the top of column A and sort by date ascending. So it goes 1915 to 2015 here. And I'm going to select all of these rows except the last one, which is blank. I don't want that row in there. And with those selected, I can simply go to Chart. And then I could select one of these charts, like for instance this one right here. And there I go. I have now a graph showing me how many books I have for each year. Here's another example. Expenses. Say you kept track of all your work expenses, date, the category, and the amount. So let's go and create a pivot table that tells us the total for each category. So with any part of this table selected, I'm going to create a pivot table here. It's an empty pivot table. I'm going to add category to it. And now what I'm going to do for values is drag amount down. So I'm going to put that under values. And it's going to show me the sum for each one. Now I could go and click here under sum and summarize by something else. For instance, the average expense for each category. Or perhaps I wanted to count how many for each category. Or the maximum for each category. But let's stick with sum, which is what we want. So now we can see the sum here. If I want, I could sort here and see the top one. What if instead of category I wanted by month? So what I could do here is add the date. It's going to add that in columns here, which is going to give me a really interesting chart where I can say, okay, here's April office expenses. That's nice. But let's go and move the date down into rows. And then it gives me this in-depth thing where I can look at meals, say, for each month. Let's just get rid of the category altogether. And now I've just got it broken down by month here and the amount. And I could sort this as well to find the month where I spent the most. If I did want to have category by month, I could select this and you could see categories going across, months going down. And not only can you see an individual item, like for instance transportation for May, but I could look easily at the total transportation here for the entire year, or I could look at, say, the total amount spent in May. And then on top of that, I get the total of all expenses. There's so much information here in this really simple pivot table. What if I want to flag a month where I spent too much? Maybe there's a limit and you're only supposed to spend $500 per category per month. Is there a way to do that? You would think you'd be able to select these and then go to Format and then be able to set conditional highlighting in some way, but you can't. However, there's nothing to prevent you from setting a special format here. Here I've got data format automatic, but what if I were to change this to a custom format and then set it up so that normally it's got a $sign, it's got a number, it's got 2 decimal places like that, but add a rule and saying if it's greater than, say, 500, then do the same format like that, but just put some text before it. Or let's do Control Command Space and then add an emoji to it, something like this. Put that there, maybe with a space. And now OK. And notice that because the format is a little different for anything above 500, it's easy for me to flag which months and categories actually went above $500. And here's one last example. This data is about sales. So say you run a shop or a restaurant or something like that. You've got transactions that happened at a certain time. A product was sold, an amount. There was the cost and sale price, which you used to calculate the profit. And then there was the salesperson. You could use this in a pivot table to get all sorts of interesting data very easily. So let's figure out which product sold the most. So with anything selected in this table, I'm going to click Pivot Table. Now I'm there. Let's do Product. And then let's drag product down to values and we get a count of that. And we can see here that both bananas and peaches sold the most. But what actually had the most profit? So let's drag profit down to values here. And we can see here that the highest one was peaches. It made the most profit there. Now what if we wanted to see this by salesperson instead? So I'm going to drag sold by down to rows, put it here at the beginning. It will then show me each person here and each product. Now we could just simply Option click here to compact them all and actually get all these numbers here. I don't have to remove product from rows because I don't need to see it. I can just close it up like that. And it's kind of handy to have there because if I do want to look at someone and say, well, they didn't sell as much. Let's take a look at exactly what they were dealing with. I can do that, but otherwise it's out of the way. And let's go and take date and time and also add that here. So we now have sold by, date and time, and product. If I were to expand each one, you could see how complex it gets. Let's Option click here to close all those up. So now you could see for Jane each month and how many sales there were. Or I could reorder these, put date and time first. Now I could see January. Let's close all these out with Option click. And you can see here there's January, there's February, there's March. So for January there's how many were sold by each person. It probably is going to be easier to see this though if I use columns. So let's go and say keep date and time, which is going to do year and month. And sold by is going to be columns like that. And you can see there are still two values, the count and the profit. Let's go and just get rid of the count like that. So now I get a clear table here. I can also clear up rows by getting rid of the product. And now you can see each person per month exactly how much they sold. I can easily swap that out for product by moving product to columns and getting rid of sold by. And now I very quickly shifted to seeing the months and the products like that. It'd be great if I can create a chart of that. And I can. I'm just going to select these values here. So I'm not selecting any of the totals or anything like that. I'm going to do a chart and I can choose this type of chart right here. And I could span this a bit. I can see this January, February, March. And I could see each product. So pears, for instance, are red. So I could see how pears did per month and also the total. Or with this selected, I could have done this kind of chart here. And it actually groups together each of the months first. And then inside each month, it groups each of these. And if I select this and go to Format here, I could scroll down here and there's gaps. And I could have gaps between sets be larger so I can more easily see which one's which month like that. One tip I got to give you though is remember that if you ever update the data in here by adding rows or changing a value, then in the pivot table you have to select it, and here under the pivot options you have to click this button to update it. And here's another tip. If you're using dates and trying to group things by years or months, make sure the date cells in your data are formatted for date and time. So here I've got all these dates selected and see under Format Cell I've got them set to date and time format. That works great, but if you have them set to automatic, then you'll find they often don't work. They'll look fine here in your table, but when you try to create the pivot table and then set it to monthly grouping or yearly grouping, it won't work. Now here's something I want you to think about after watching this entire thing. I didn't once show you a formula. There were no functions or anything like that in this tutorial. I used pivot tables to do all these calculations without ever having to actually type a function into a cell. And the amount of information I got from these pivot tables is huge. So if you're not good at using formulas and functions and spreadsheets, but you still like to use them to gather and organize data, then pivot tables are something you should learn how to use to get more from your information. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.